Alright, this is going to be the domains of learning, and whenever we take a look at the domains of learning, pretty much for years educators have used different domains of learning, and there's pretty much three of them that we're going to isolate on here: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Anytime you design an instructional strategy, and that would include the development of goals and objectives, you should consider the domains of learning. Anytime you make an evaluation tool, you should also consider the domains of learning. Again, cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So, in this slide set, this is the topics that we're going to talk about: categorizing the domains, the domain levels, addressing the domains in goals and objectives, addressing the domains in teaching strategies, addressing the domains in evaluation methods. So first of all, there's a couple of terms here that we need to become familiar with, and the terms are depth and breadth. And I'm going to kind of read them here. Depth is the mastery of knowledge in a subject, and breadth is the scope or range of understanding or knowledge. And this pretty much equates to a jack of all trades and pretty much a master of one or two. EMS providers are widespread knowledge in multiple areas of healthcare, but whenever we start talking about their specialty, they are a master of the trade in probably one or two areas, and generally this is cardiac arrest management and trauma management. I would like to say that we are also masters of pediatric management, but we could probably work a little more on that. Pediatric arrest, I would say that we are. So whenever we look at this, the knowledge base is the top of the table. So all of this area up here is their knowledge base, and it's a wide, vast variety of knowledge, and pretty much the depth of knowledge are the table legs. So instructors, we should pretty much create a very substantial table, and the more table legs that we can actually add to this, the more substantial the table is. Depth and breadth. Jack of all trades, master of one or two. So we're talking about categorizing the domains, and we have three domains here that we're going to categorize. And this is a general overview of this. Cognitive domain is pretty much knowledge base. Affective domain is feelings, how you would deal with feelings, and your behavior. And then psychomotor domain, which is pretty much skill-oriented or kinesthetic display of your knowledge base. The cognitive domain. The cognitive domain describes learning that takes place through the process of thinking. It deals with facts and knowledge. So this would be book learning, didactic learning. Example, reading a book and understanding the contraindications of administering a certain medication. Affective domain. Affective domain describes learning in terms of feelings, emotions, attitudes, and values. An example of this: while in a scenario, sitting in a scenario, learning how vulnerable a patient can feel when they're sick. That would be an affective domain. Another affective domain, whenever the students are in clinical setting, we assess them, or the preceptor assesses them over their effective education. Are they empathetic, or do they have empathy? How well did they do? Do they have integrity? What was their behavior? So affective domain is also behavioral assessment. Psychomotor domain. Psychomotor domain describes learning that takes place through an attainment of skills and bodily or kinesthetic movement. So this is hands-on learning. An example: a student who physically practices in a skill station will achieve competency in how to properly perform the skill. So if they practice it again and again and again, even if they're a combination learner, if they're an auditory learner or a verbal learner, or a scene type learner, maybe they have to see it once, or maybe they have to talk themselves through it. But most people that we find in EMS are combination learners, and one of the combinations that they have kind of to get all together is they have a kinesthetic learner. So they can learn by hands-on. If you show them how to do it and have them do it once, there's a good chance they can reproduce it. Domain levels, and this covers a little bit of Bloom's taxonomy. This is also a general overview of this. Each domain is structured into 2 levels, and kind of a formal and an informal system. So whenever we look at each one of these domains, the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor domains, each one of them have different levels of achievement. This here is Bloom's taxonomy. This is table 7.1 in your book. So there are 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy right here. And the first one is cognitive domain, and the cognitive domain would be like knowledge base. So obviously level 1 would be knowledge. Comprehension, can they comprehend what they're reading? Just because they can read it and reverberate it doesn't mean that they actually comprehend it. Can they apply what they're reading? An analysis of the knowledge that they have. A synthesis, of putting together multiple areas. Now this is where critical thinking comes into play. That they have the ability to see an indication, perform an analysis on it, and synthesize a plan. Can they do all this? This is all cognitive domain. And then last but not least here is an evaluation. Can they evaluate another student? Whenever I have my paramedic students going through, they are allowed to do evaluations on each other for the lower levels of their skill sheets. So what this does is this increases their ability to put all of this information in their head and apply it so that we get psychomotor to a naturalized state. And we're going to talk about each one of these here. Alright, so the next one we're going to talk about is affective domain. Are they a good receiver? Are they responding to the actual training? Valuing, did they take it as value? Did they use it at that point as well? Organizing, can they organize all of their thoughts and processes? And characterizing. Now when they're characterizing, this is again is behavior. So characteristically and in character, are they behaving like that you would think a medic should behave? And that's what you would be assessing for affective domain. And then psychomotor, can I imitate what you've done? Can I manipulate it if I am thrown a curveball, if you will? Can I precisely perform it again? And can I articulate to someone or tell someone how to do it? And then last but not least would be a naturalized state. And then this is where we want to try to get students to. Not so much that they can talk down a list, but that they can perform the skill and they can perform the psychomotor training in a naturalized state. Cognitive domain levels. So level 1, knowledge focuses on memorization and recall of information. Level 2, comprehension focuses on interpreting and understanding and the meaning behind the information. Level 3, application, deals with relating classroom information to real life situations and experiences. So this would be applied again in scenario. Let's use a green pen here. And here's where we are. Analysis requires a student to be able to separate whole concepts into individual smaller parts to analyze the meaning or understanding. Level 5, synthesis, they are able to combine pieces of information into new and different whole ideas. So they have a multitude of things that they're applying at this point. Level 6, evaluation. The student has attained cognitive mastery of the concepts and is able to make judgments and decisions about the information. So again, the evaluation phase would be after he has a complete knowledge base, he's applied it, he can synthesize the information again, and now he can probably evaluate over it. If you can get your students to evaluating each other a little bit, again, mentor them, be in there and coach them through this. Don't just allow them to do this on their own. But from that, they will see mistakes that the other person has made and be looking more attentively at the list and more focused, if it is a skill. And what this will allow them to do is to attain that skill themselves faster. Affective domain. Level 1, receiving occurs when the student acquires awareness of the value of and importance of learning information and expresses a willingness to learn. So this is, you've made them inquisitive. They're receiving the information. Level 2, responding, expands upon level 1 and the student actively participates in the learning process and begins to derive satisfaction from it. So they actually like learning at this point. Level 3, valuing, is the level in which the student individually perceives that the behavior has worth or value. So this has a value at that point to them, or it's worth something. Level 4, organizing, integrates new, refined, and different beliefs into the student's existing own value system and reconciles differences between old and new beliefs. So they've learned something from this. This is, I'm not saying going as far as changing their religion, but this has brought about a new epiphany, if you will, and this has changed their valuing system on how to do something. Level 5. Characterizing is the highest level of attainment, and this requires the development of one's own value system that governs behavior. So at the point that they adjust their behavior so that it is adequately in line with what we think that a paramedic or a medic in general or an EMS provider should be characterizing as, this would be the highest level of this domain, characterization. Psychomotor domain. Level 1, imitation. The student repeats and mimics the demonstration is given to them. Level 2, manipulation, occurs as the student practice and the skills begin to create their own style of performance. So they kind of got their own way of doing things at this point, but it's still within standards. Level 3, precision at this point is which the skill should be performed without any mistakes. Level 4, articulation, occurs as the students becomes proficient and competent in the performance of the skill, adding their own style or flair to it. Level 5, naturalization, is the mastery level of the skill performance. This level is attained when the student performs the skill seamlessly without cognition, so without any forethought whatsoever. They just perform the skill, referred to as muscle memory. And this is the level that you would like to get your students to whenever they are doing skills, is level 5. Addressing the domains in goals and objectives. The domains of learning are used in the instructional design process for writing goals and objectives. Power words are applied whenever you write goals and objectives, and they identify the level of cognition. So words like arrange, define, describe, identify. Identify the anatomical pieces or anatomical parts of an upper airway would be an example of this. Or label, if given a list, or set conditions on this, is given a list, label the appropriate terms as following: list, name, match, memorize, order, recall, recite, and repeat. All power words of this goals and objectives that are used, or whenever they're applied to be used. Addressing the domains in teaching strategies. Domains are often independent. An example, intubation. We need to identify the equipment. This would be knowledge level. I am aware that I have this much equipment. Understand the indications for the skill, and then this would also be cognitive level. Recite the sequence of events. This would be both cognitive level and psychomotor level, and then actually perform the skill. And what you want them to perform the skill in is in a naturalized state. So they're going to have knowledge base, be able to apply it, be able to manipulate the skill if you change or alter the conditions, and be able to apply that in a dynamic environment. And it refers to a section called scaffolding. So as we build on somebody, or as we build their knowledge base, it's kind of like a scaffold. And this is a process known as scaffolding. So these are various entry-level skills here: cognitive 1, psychomotor 1, affective 1. So this is our foundation, and then what we start doing is we start adding to the foundation until we have a wall built, and this is considered scaffolding. Depth and breadth. And these are going back to what we talked about earlier. Remember, if we're building a table, and depth and breadth is the tabletop, and depth are the legs. The depth of knowledge versus the expansion of knowledge, or the base of knowledge. Objective A states that the student should take a supplied list of names of 7 organs and label those organs on a mannequin. Objective B states that the student should draw a human skeleton and label all the major bones from memory. Objective A deals with the cognitive domain level 1 knowledge, whereas Objective B deals with the cognitive domain level 5 synthesis. The difference between them: Objective A, students should take a supplied list of names of 7 organs and label those organs on a mannequin. Objective B, the student should draw a human skeleton and label all the major bones from memory. So this is synthesis, and this is knowledge. You've already given them the list. An easy way to help students to attain depth and breadth is to account for memory degradation. So everybody kind of loses some memory and forgets some of the class automatically by teaching one level beyond that required by the objective. Time constraints may make this actual part of it impossible. So if you were teaching basics and you tried to teach as close as you could to intermediate, the memory degradation there would make your bell curve on the education of your basics a lot better. Addressing the domains in evaluation methods. Educators must create evaluation tools that determine mastery of each level of the domain. Written or oral exams are useful to evaluate cognitive domain. Class participation demonstrates leadership and peer supervision and affective. Another way to assess affective is having behavioral evaluation sheets in the actual for their clinicals. Skill competency exams are useful in the psychomotor domain. Students must achieve proficiency in all 3 domains of learning. The domains of learning are scientific tools that are used to craft objectives. Identify the depth and breadth of the content to plan lessons and teach strategies and evaluate learning and retention. Good educators know how to use these tools and to hone the art of teaching. Again, one more time, breadth would be the tabletop and depth would be the table legs. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My name is Roy Smith. I can be reached at smithr@imsa.net or 405-219-7613. Thank you.